Greetings and salutations, friends. So Sisyphus55 is a YouTuber that I've been subscribed to for maybe a year now, and you can probably tell by his YouTube name that he makes a lot of videos about philosophy and general inquiries into human behavior. And so my boyfriend and I have this routine where every night before bed, my boyfriend starts a watch party and queues up a bunch of videos, and I gradually fall asleep listening to them. And so the other night, my friends and I watched a movie. Remember that? And as I was falling asleep, I was listening to Sisyphus's new video. Well, it might not be new anymore, but it was called Hard Choices, Easy Life, Easy Choices, Hard Life. In it, he talks about the idea behind this quote and the moral quandary of choices, where they lead us, what they leave us with. As Sisyphus describes it, he connects it to the idea of a homeostasis between pleasure and suffering. And so he describes that this was an idea famously touched upon by Nietzsche. He uses Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra, a book for all and none, as a referential text, and he quotes the following: "What if pleasure and displeasure were so tied together that whoever wanted to have as much as possible of one must also have as much as possible of the other, that whoever wanted to jubilate up to the heavens would also have to be prepared for depression unto death." And this, weirdly and interestingly enough, paralleled the movie I had just watched that night. This coexistence of pleasure and pain was very reminiscent of the 2006 film Just My Luck, starring Lindsey, Lohan, and Chris Pine. This is not a joke. I'm not joking. I'm not kidding. So Just My Luck is a romantic comedy about two people on either side of the sword. Ashley, played by Lindsey Lohan, is a beautiful, wealthy, smart Manhattanite who finds money stuck to the bottom of her really nice heels, and she wins every scratch off. Jake, contrastingly, is SOL, as he describes it, perpetually, or so we think, shit out of luck. He's a loser who can't deliver his band CD to the really famous producer Damon Phillips, and he finds dog shit on the money that he finds in trash cans. He also gets arrested for what looks like sexual assault. Honestly, this movie plays sexual assault for laughs in a really weird way, and that's my biggest issue with it. But a lot of rom-coms do that, so maybe that's a whole video for another time. We are immediately introduced to this parallel, this duality of good fortune and bad. You can argue that this is a homeostasis of sorts, like Sisyphus says. The film ties Ashley's pleasure and Jake's displeasure together, if not structurally, through the back and forth of their storylines, then romantically. When they meet at a party Ashley is hosting for work that Jake manages to sneak into, they are drawn to each other. When they kiss, it's magic, but also a curse, as their luck has officially switched because of their kiss. Shortly before the kiss, the fortune teller at the party advised Ashley to be mindful as her wheel is about to turn. So let's get a little mythical with it. In mythology, the Greek goddess Fortuna came to be a prominent symbol in the medieval period, being the goddess of fate, luck, and of course, fortune. And she was always associated with the wheel, referred to as, of course, the Wheel of Fortune, or Rota Fortunae. Probably didn't say that right either. It came to symbolize man's plight of human existence. At the top of the wheel, a person's lifestyle was full of happiness and leisure. An individual at this level would live like a king. However, the wheel would eventually rotate and the person would begin to endure a miserable existence, full of pain and tragedy. Someone at the bottom hoped that Fortuna would eventually spin her wheel often enough for the individual to come back on top, both metaphorically and financially. So, pairing this with the previous Nietzsche quote, what if we posited that there wasn't only one person on the wheel at one time? What if two people were on the wheel, creating a physical balance? And that when the wheel does turn, it affects both parties. In this case, Jake and Ashley. The second half of Nietzsche's quote continues that when pain and pleasure are tied together, whoever wants as much of one must also have as much as the other, meaning the wheel has to turn. It cannot remain stagnant. Ashley must experience the hardships at the bottom, and Jake should get to experience the success at the top. And so, our film begins. Post-kiss, Ashley is arrested, loses her job, and loses her home to a flood. Jake saves a man's life, and that man happens to be the music producer Damon Phillips, who in return wants to hear the band's CD and eventually signs them. But Sisyphus and Nietzsche have more to say. Sisyphus explains Nietzsche postulates a kind of formula in which, to quote Sisyphus himself, where every experience of pleasure will likely be greeted with an equal and opposite experience of pain. Nietzsche writes, "You have the choice, either as little displeasure as possible, painlessness and brief, or as much displeasure as possible as the price of the growth of an abundance of subtle pleasures and joys that have rarely been relished yet." And this is exactly what we see with Ashley when she's at the bottom of the wheel. We see her lose for probably the first time in her life. She's had most things handed to her in life, and now once her ass is added to that platter, she has to rebuild. While she notices the displeasure of losing a job she loved and was actually good at, we see her struggle but ultimately prevail as the janitor of the bowling alley that Jake used to work at. She relishes in the subtle pleasure of learning how to conquer and clean the men's bathroom, and learning how to clean the floors without heels on, of helping her friends succeed even though she herself isn't. This friend is Maggie, a songwriter who delivers the thematic line in the film. When Ashley recommends her to deliver a song to Jake's band for their debut concert, she's thrilled. But after Ashley kisses Jake again, now knowing that it will switch their luck, the music producer Damon doesn't want Maggie's song played. A disheartened but hopeful Maggie replies to Ashley asking her if she's okay by saying, "Well, of course, what choice do I have? If you dwell on all the bad things in life, you miss out on all the good things." And while she does say she doesn't have a choice, Nietzsche directly says the opposite, that having Maggie's mindset is a choice. Ashley has been so focused on her bad luck. She doesn't even really stop to consider that Jake has lived this life for 25, almost 30 years? If, as Nietzsche and Sisyphus say, suffering is a necessary facet of existence and simply resigning to it leaves you hollow, then Jake is a colossal philosophical figure, for he has endured decades of shit and found a way to cope. He has a backpack that has everything he might need in it. First aid, toothpaste for burns, extra socks, etc. When Ashley finds this out, she asks him, isn't that a bit defeatist? And he says, no, it's realist. To someone who's always been unlucky, preparing isn't defeating. It's fighting back. Every day you continue living and trying, which he clearly and embarrassingly does, is fighting. For Ashley, downward mobility is a visual reconstruction of being defeated. But clearly the message remains that Jake's life has always had value, even when it was shitty. He still has passions for music and his band. He still cares about people, like his little cousin that lives next door. He takes risks and goes after what he wants in life, while still fully understanding that his bad luck is an immense and active obstacle in his life. So, is there a homeostasis between pleasure and suffering the film sets to declare? Almost. In the romantic climax, Jake says that his luck has been great, but, quote, "I'll be fine without it because I'll have you, Ashley, in my life. A few bumps and bruises along the way are a small price to pay." So they kiss and lose track of who has the good luck now, thus forming a balance of taking the brunt of the good and bad together, a duo standing beside each other on the wheel instead of above and below. Sisyphus concluded his video by quoting Nietzsche on how to achieve happiness, which would be as a, quote, "unintended side effect of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself or surrender to a person other than oneself." So Jake and Ashley surrender to each other instead of the guaranteed security that they would have alternatively. But when Jake's cousin Katie shows up, the couple kisses her on the cheek, abandoning their good luck to someone who may have inherited some of the familial bad luck Jake has. And the film ends with them in an unlucky circumstance, but it's lighthearted and a freeze frame, so it's fine. So I guess the final message the film tries to deliver is that there is no such thing as luck, and you shouldn't live in accordance to that phenomenon, especially because Maggie, again, who delivered that thematic line, also says that you can't believe in that stuff. She says that to Ashley. So the movie is saying it doesn't really exist, even though we just spent almost 2 hours seeing its consequences. So that's where the movie maybe isn't the most philosophical film ever. But I thought it would be interesting to kind of put this spin on it and just have some fun and see what kind of mythological and philosophical interpretations you could add to this little rom-com from 2006. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this, maybe subscribe or like or comment. All of it's appreciated.